All right, let's go ahead and jump in. So today's battle map is made by user Wave, and it's called the Dwarven Forge. And I really like this map. It has perspective to it. I can see that they added some perspective to it, which is very nice actually for a submerged or sunk battle map because it will help to show the depth of the water level because of that. Now, just because this map has perspective, it does not mean that the techniques and tricks that we're going to be doing in this episode are not applicable to maps that don't have that perspective. They totally are. So if you look at this map and say, well, how am I going to apply these techniques to my map, which are not have perspective to it? Don't worry, that's not a problem. So if you have a map that you want to sink underwater, open that up and we'll follow along to do this technique. So this is basically what it's going to look like. I mean, we'll probably add a little bit more to this. We'll probably add a lot more fallen stuff, but this is basically how how it will somewhat look when we finally get to it. So take a little look to see the difference here. Here's our fully formed, and then here's our underwater version. So we'll show you how we did this. As usual, whenever I'm remaking a map, one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to try to reorganize a little bit of the right panel or try to make myself familiar with the right panel to find out where everything is because you have quite a few layers here. We have a floor layer, a bottom floor layer. We also have an object layer 1 and 2. So there's a lot, and there's also lights up here. So a lot of object layers. If you're not familiar with what an object layer, it's going to have that little tower on next to it. So if you're ever wondering what an object layer is, the icon is that symbol there. One of the first, so I've looked at it and it looks like they're all over the place. This map, it was probably a little bit older and then it got upgraded to 2.0. And what often happens in the upgrades is it will sometimes shuffle stamps across multiple object layers. So if you're updating a new map and you notice that you're not able to select something, don't worry, there's nothing wrong. You probably just need to go to that right panel over here and look for that object layer 2 or 3 probably, okay? Just a heads up. So since I've kind of established all that, now I can go in and delete all the light sources. Because this map was submerged underwater, we no longer need to have stamps that have flames, or we need light sources because those flames are going to be extinguished from the water that floods in. Now the overall concept is that this dungeon right here, or this map right here, is underneath an ancient mountain lake. Think of it as the water source at the headwaters of a very epic river. And what happened is that roof collapsed and the water leaked, come crashing in one fateful night and submerged all the halls, including this forge right here. Now, as always, I try to lean into it, making it look like it was an accident or natural causes, but in truth, likely something sinister is at play. And what I would do is I would have my players start out in some village and they're talking or overhearing from NPCs. Often players might not want to engage with NPCs. So what I'll do is I'll often have players overhear a bunch of rumors about the mines, and this will encourage them or make them curious about going to the forge and to discover what actually happened. Was it natural forces that submerged this battle map, this forge, or was it some nefarious evil forces? Was it done by magic? Was it done on purpose? Were the dwarves working on something unnatural and evil that they found in the mountain, and that caused some kind of accident to happen? And so those rumors, I will have the players overhear, or if they talk to NPCs, and hopefully that will encourage them to go to this place. So I'll go ahead and delete all the light sources. What I'll do is just type in light, and every single light will pop up. And so I'll just go ahead and select all of them. What you can do is you can click the top one, scroll down, hold down the shift key and press the bottom one, and it will select all of them. And I'm just going to go ahead and just delete every single one of those lights. So those are done. We don't want any lights anymore. I'll go over to other layers to make sure there's no other lights. There's no light. Oh, there's some lights in this one as well. Let's delete these. Remember, we don't need light sources. We'll establish them once we submerge it underwater. So we're going to delete every light source that I can find. Bottom floor. I think that's all the light sources. So then the next step is we want to select, what we want to do is we want to select every stamp that produces light. That's going to be these forges right here. We're going to end up replacing those. So I'll take these flames and I'll remove them. Let me go down an object layer. Let's go ahead and replace these right here. So I'll go to select both of these and then go replace asset. We'll go to fantasy battle maps. I'm going to type in Dwarven or Fireplace or Forge. Let's try both. No, let's go with Dwarven. Here we go. And here's the version without the lit furnaces. So I'll select this one right here. Now I have these unlit furnaces here. That's good. Good step. Let's also go into this one right here. This right here looks like it might be a group. So we'll open that group and then we'll remove that clip mask that makes this forge stick out. I'll also go to this one right here, and I'm also going to replace this with another one. Forge without the flame. Oopsie, we'll have to go up a layer and remove that flame there. Oops, did it not work? Let's go back. Object. Let's type in flame or fire. Nope. Not that one. Okay. Let's see here. One moment. It might be flame instead of fire. Let's try that. Not seeing that particular flame stamp right there. I'm not sure what layer that one's on. It might be this layer here. Let's see here. Oh, I see some molten. Let's also delete those as well. Yes, Zoppo, this will absolutely be on YouTube. So if you missed anything, don't worry. We'll upload this to YouTube right after it's done, okay? All right, well, what I'm looking for is that fire. Oh, there's fire. Oh, the stamp's right there. Silly me. So let's go ahead and remove those. We want to remove as much of this stuff as that we can here. Oh, is this the... Okay, yeah, there it is right there. That looks like a group. Let's replace this. Is this a line right here? That's a line. Let's go and replace that with an empty one. Under Dwarven here, let's replace it with that one. There we go. So now that's been replaced. Let's also get rid of that flame right there. I'm seeing a light source right here, a crystal. We can keep that on, that's okay. And ooh, I see a little spell light source right there. Let's go ahead and remove that. See if I can find that anywhere. Bottom. Let me type in spell. I believe that's a spell, so we'll go through each layer until we find the spell. There we go. And there's a lot of them too, so we'll delete all of those. And then here's some spells here as well. We'll delete those. None there. Lights. There's some spells there. Perfect. Okay. We can delete that as well. Okay. I also see that there's some highlights in here as well. See these blue highlights right here? Why don't we also get rid of all of that as well? We don't need the highlights because we're going to establish our own light sources. So let me just take a look over it. Oh, let's also replace these braziers, these wall braziers here. So we'll go back and we're going to replace every single one of these. Let's try floor level. There we go. And I'm going to select all from the set. Then I'm going to go over to replace asset. And I'm going to go over to this one. Let me show all of them. Just remember this quick trick with replace. When you're replacing assets and you want the assets to be replaced within a specific stamp within a set, you have to open the stamp set and then select the stamp. If you select the thumbnail of a stamp set, it will randomize the replacement. So just kind of remember that. So if I take this stamp right here, you'll notice that it replaces it with those ones. But if I was to go like this, replace asset, and then choose one within a set, let me go to expand. Let me go to collapse all sets. There we go. If I click this within a set, it's going to randomize the stamp. Notice how it's not the same one. So just a quick tip right there that you need to do. But these tips, the replace asset is very, very helpful when you want to remake a map. So just kind of keep that as a heads up, okay? All right, so then the next step that we want to do here, make sure that I'm not, look at this sword right here, make sure there's no light sources. Okay, this looks good. All right. And shadow layer right here. Okay, so what I want to do now is I'm going to create a whole new object layer, and I'm going to rename that object layer to water. Okay, so I'm going to choose this layer right here. I'm going to go to add layer at the top, object layer, and I'm going to call it water. Let me rename here, water. There we go. And what I'm going to do with that layer is I'm going to go over to my shape tool. You're going to press that R key. And there's a couple things that you're going to do. First, you're going to want to choose merge shape. That needs to be on. Next, you're going to choose your stroke. Make sure that little toggles click, go into here, and we're going to type in wave. Wave is going to be our stroke, and then we're also going to choose fill, and we're going to choose a fill texture, and we're going to choose a water texture of our choice. Let's go with Core 2.0 because we want to stick with the 2.0 art. And then from right here, what I'll do is I'm going to just go into these corners right here and line this up. Want to line this up like this. Let's see, make sure I got it lined up properly. Let's actually make it a little bit bigger than that. I'll scroll up to make it just a little bit bigger. That looks about right. And what you'll do is you'll need to change the scale of the stroke. I recommend bringing the stroke scale down quite a bit. And then you're also going to go over to your water over here, and you're going to go over to advanced options, and you're going to bring the opacity down a little bit. Okay. And my suggestion is the deeper the water is, the less opaque that shape will be. So if I bring the opacity down way down like this, the water is quite shallow. But if I bring it up like this, the water is a lot deeper. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. So what we want is I want to have enough water to where you can actually kind of see enough of the water, but you can also see the objects underneath of it. That's your good step. There we go. That looks good. Now I can go in and I can realign this to set this up where I want this to be. So I'll set it up. Let's say right about there. Looks good. I might have to minus a couple things. Like let's go ahead and remove a little bit. I'm going to go here, go to subtract. I'm going to turn the snap to grid off, and I'm just going to remove a little bit here. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that the corners of this shape are on the pillar on purpose, because I'm trying to line this up to where the water level is somewhat the same. So I'll go ahead and do this. Let's go ahead and bring the scale up just a little bit more, make it a little bit bigger. Let's go down right about, oopsie, my bad. I went to about that. I'm going to go about that size. Looks good. I want it to be covering up enough of the wall here, but also the ground. So that'll be quite helpful. Oh, you're most welcome, by the way, Zelpo. Okay. All right. So now that that's done, now we can start taking the subtract mode. We'll go ahead and go to this right here. Go to shape tool. Then you're going to go over to your brush. You're going to have subtract, and you're going to bring the brush size down a little bit. If you hold shift and use your mouse scroll wheel, you'll be able to easily control the size of the brush. Make sure that there's some caveats for this shape to merge. Whatever I do, this add or subtract to merge, you have to make sure that the shape is set to the same layer. So because this shape is on layer 0, the shape must also be on sub layer 0 for it to be affected, right? So what I'll do first is I'm going to start with my corners. I'm just going to go like this and create a little bit of a corner like this to where it conforms. And the way that I'll know how to make it is I'm going to use the base of that pillar there. So I'll conform a little bit so it looks like it's up against that pillar. I'll start right here too. We want it to conform a little bit. This kind of seems to be popping out a little bit. Same thing here. We'll make this pop out a little bit. Same thing with this pillar. I'm going to go in right here and kind of create this curvature to the pillar here. That looks good. Let's do that. That looks about right. That looks okay. This one is off a little bit, so we'll have to make it to where it goes in something like this. I think should look good, like that. That looks good. Or you can paint it in, or you can paint it going in. What we'll do is we'll probably put a bunch of rubble right here to block off these exits, or you can paint a little bit of water inside of it. So I can go back just so you know how to do that. You can go to the add mode. I would use a pen because of how straight these lines are. And then you could just create like this, just go to add, and then it would kind of look like the water is going into that tunnel there. If you want, you could have it go all the way to, that's up to you. The way that I would go about doing it is you could take this again and then go in here like this, and I'll connect like this, and you probably wouldn't see the waves right here. So what I would do is I would go over to the portals right here and just kind of remove these waves right here like this. And then that way it won't look like the waves are kind of going at the top of the base there. So you could do that, or you could just cover it in rubble. I think either one works fine. I wanted to do rubble personally because I want to show that there's a collapse, and that's exactly what's in the story. So we'll do it that way. But just so you know, you can do that. Let's go back and we'll finish up these corners here. Make sure it's set to subtract. It'll have to be on the same layer, remember that? And then I'll bring the size up a little bit and I'll just kind of rotate, just kind of remove that section there. That looks good. And I already did this one right here. Let's bring the scale down a little bit more. Oopsie, not the scale of that, my bad. The scale of the brush. And we'll go ahead and just do the same thing here. There seems to be some pillars right here, so let's do that. And then for every one of these little wall sections, you would expect a little bit of a pillar. Oopsie, that's the scale, my mistake. We'll go to brush size. Here we go. Where's my brush size? There we go. And let's go ahead and just add a little bit right there on these sections. Right here, wherever you see a little bit of a pillar. Oopsie, that doesn't look right. Let's go ahead and do that again real quick. That looks better. There we go. Okay, oh yeah, right here, right here, right here. Oop, let's continue fixing that a little bit. Fix that a little bit. There we go, that looks good. Okay, so now you have that water there. Now we can make some changes too, like if you wanted to show, you don't have to make the line perfect. You could also take sections of it like this and then kind of make it a little bit more wobbly to make it more interesting. Like this, a little bit more wobbly. Doesn't have to be a perfect straight line. That sometimes makes it a little bit better because a perfect straight line seems a little odd. So just kind of adding in a couple sections here are kind of helpful. Just like this, a couple sections here and there. That looks good. Okay. All right. So next, now that we've added in our water, now we can decide what things are going to be above the water, like additional things that we'll add that will be under the water and above the water. And what's really helpful is we should start with the collapse part first. Where are the areas in which the ceiling collapsed and fell down? Right? And so a couple places that we'll start is by putting some rubble on some entrances. We'll start there first. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on the water layer so that way I can kind of control everything with sublayers in this water level. So I'll go into the catalog and type in Rubble. If I can get that to work there. Looks good. We'll choose the Rubble here. And what I'll do is I'm just going to place a couple here. First, I'll put one down like this. And I can decide whether I want it to be underwater, like this, or if I want it to be above water like this. And so I think what I'll do is I'll have some of it submerged underwater and some of it won't be submerged. And I think that will make it more interesting, right? Because here's the thing. If you have a battle map where the ratio to water to walkable land is much higher on the water side, that map becomes a little bit more difficult and it limits the range of options that your players have for combat. So one thing I'm going to be doing here is I want to make a ratio of places where people or players can stand and actually cast spells. They're not trying to swim and move around. They're going to be able to walk on certain spaces. But I want to make sure the ratio is there's more water than there is walkable land. And so now there becomes a way to have different strategy instead of just always being in the water or always being on the land. So the walkable parts and the water parts should be a good ratio. I would say something like maybe 30-70, that be 30 walkable area and 70% water. That's usually a good area, but that's up to you and how you want to do it. So I'll let you kind of decide that. And I'll put another one above the water, kind of like this. In fact, I'll go ahead and pick it down a layer. So some of it is in the water and some of it isn't. So I can put a little bit of rubble right here. And I'm going to do this to every entrance of my choice. So maybe I'll do another one right here like this. And I think I'll put it underwater. We'll start there. I'll put another one underwater right here. This one looks good. We'll put that there. We'll collapse that like this. Another one like this. There we go. That looks good. That looks good. And then I'll put a giant pile. What I want to show is like a giant pile, like not perfectly centered, but off center a little bit. I'll put it in the center first, and then I'll move it. So I'll take this right here. I'm going to go ahead and put another one right here like this. Oopsie, I'll go up a layer. My mistake. And put another one right here like this. I want to create a decent pile like this. And then what I'll do here is I'll take every single one of these, create group, we're going to call it pile. I'm going to copy paste. then put another one underwater like this. I'll bring the scale up a little bit, and I'll put it just right underneath like that. And now you have the rubble that's submerged and then the rubble that's above. And I want to scale this so where it's bigger, because every bit of the rubble that's above water, it should have rubble underneath of it. Because otherwise, how is the rubble above staying above the water unless there's rocks underneath of it? So you would make the general rubble pile, and notice again that it's kind of that rubble pile is perfectly centered. Why don't I move that a little bit over, like over here somewhere? I want it to be off-centered. Maybe I want to move it over to here. Whatever you do is don't make it perfectly centered, because that will look weird. So instead, I recommend putting it like maybe in a corner right here, like this. So, I have a nice spot right here like this. Let's talk about making some cool things. Hey, first time chatter, by the way. Yeah, really cool, huh? Lots of fun. You're just creating sub-layers in which you can put things underwater and below the water. Isn't that cool? So kind of nice. Why don't we take some of the objects that are under the water and put them above the water? Check this out. We'll go to object layer 2, or I think it's object layer 1. Let me just double check to see which layer it is. Floor layer. This looks like it's it. Let's take this one right here, this one right here. Let's take, doesn't look like I can select anything on that floor. Let's take these two right here. I've selected them both, move to layer, and I'm going to move it to water layer. Okay, now if I go over to my water layer, you'll notice there they are right there. And I'll go ahead and take these, and I'm going to go ahead and bring them up a layer. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead, and the way that I want to do this is to show height is I'll overlap. Have this floating crate be above this minecart right here, so it looks like it's above, right? If it's in an open space, a negative space with no stamp below it, and there's no overlap, it won't look like it's floating above it. So it's important that you try to overlap a couple of these stamps above the stamps below it, so that it will give this sense of overlap and height. What I would also recommend doing is maybe taking these and changing the object shadow to maybe a white color to make it look like it's interacting with the water a little bit. Let me go ahead and bring the size up like this. About right. Bring the intensity up to maybe about 65. And now you have these floating crates right here. Kind of makes sense. So that looks good. And I want to maybe do the same thing to some of these barrels down here at the bottom. So let's maybe check the bottom floor and see if I can find the right layer for those. Object layer 1. There they are. Let's take one of these crates and let's take one of these crates. And then we'll go ahead and move them up a layer. So we'll go move to layer water, move back to water, and there they are above the water. Let's go ahead and have one like this. Oopsie, I accidentally moved this to the wrong layer. I wanted the wrong one there. So let's go ahead and remove that back down to object layer 1, and then I'll go back to object layer and I'll make sure I have that barrel selected. There we go. Barrel is selected. I'm going to move this to layer water. There we go, and I'll rotate it. Oops, not that one, my mistake. Water. Flip, rotate like this. Yes, I'm going to show you how to do half submerge. Don't worry, I'm totally on that. We're going to do it to this crate, this barrel right here. And it's a cool trick. You'll like this. So what I'll do here is I'm going to first add the white object shadow to this one. And then after I add that, we'll go ahead and submerge this barrel right here, half underwater and partially above the water. So a cool trick. I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and choose that white color. Let's go ahead and center the drop shadow by putting the offsets to 0. I believe 65 was the nice size, and then we'll bring this up a little bit. All right, so the way to do underwater is pretty simple. First, I'm going to put this underwater, step 1. It has to be underwater. There's step 1, okay? Step 2, you're going to go back to your water shape here. Then you're going to go over to your, let's go over to shapes here. Let's go to subtract mode, brush. Let's make sure it's on the right layer 0. And what I'll do is I'm going to select, let's go and bring the brush size down. Let's say that I want this upper part to be above the water and this part below. So I'll go ahead and subtract like this. There we go. Okay, oopsie, looks like I'll have to change this up a little bit more. I want to make sure that the waves are a little outside of it. And if you don't like the waves, that's not a big deal. You can always do the, you can always use, check this out, the portal tool right here. And we can remove those waves. Let's go ahead and change our wavelength a little bit here. We'll have the waves just be right here like this. See, the problem is there's caps. We might have to turn the caps off. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to go ahead and click the shape. You're going to go over to these options up in here. We're going to go, there's this little option called caps. I'm going to turn those caps off because the caps are what kind of are causing the problem there. Now that the caps are off, you'll notice that I don't have that problem as much anymore. Now I can just go in and just kind of paint in the spots that I missed like this. There we go. It looks like I'll have to do that again real quick. No big deal. Just make sure that the caps are off. There we go. Okay, that looks good. All right, so half submerged underwater and then partially above the water. So it takes a little bit of finagling, but what you'll do again is you're just going to remove the parts that you want to be above the water with the subtract mode and make sure that your caps are turned off, because the waves have these two weird caps that kind of pop out quite a bit, and so that might not work here. And you don't need to worry about caps as an issue with this because the main shape doesn't have any ends for caps on it. So you'll have to turn caps off, so that works out quite well. There are other options for putting things underwater and above water, but this is the method that I'll use for here. But there's a lot of different ways you can go about doing it. I think what we should do is we should also take some objects that are underwater and move them around a little bit. If you look around, everything is nice and neat, right? And that doesn't really make a lot of sense. You would expect, when something was flooded with water, you would expect carts to go off the rails, right? The things within the cart would be on the ground because it spilled or fell over, right? So why don't we do a couple of those things? Why don't we replace this cart right here, mine cart, with a cart that fell over? There's one right there. Is this mine? There you go, mine cart 2.0. I'll replace that. So we'll have a mine cart that fell over like this underwater. That makes total sense, right? And then let's go ahead and push some of these off the tracks a little bit, like rotate them a little bit. If I could get this one right here, I'm going to rotate it a little bit this way. Maybe we'll even kind of have it off the track a little bit. Here's another. Let's go ahead and grab anything that I can and I'll rotate it. Let's go ahead and rotate this one a little bit. Let's rotate this one. Let's put these. Oh, I see some forge stuff. We should remove some of that forge stuff. My mistake. Let's replace that stamp right there. Let's go with Dwarven. It's like I missed one. Replace. There we go. That should replace it. Did it replace it? Oh, let's try it again. There we go. Cool. Let's go ahead and put this on the floor. And to show that it's a little further down than that furnace, I'll bring the brightness down a little bit. There we go. Let's go ahead and move. That looks like a shadow. Let's go ahead and delete those shadows. Let's go ahead and move this over to here like this. Oh, there's water in those. Why don't we replace those as well? Is there an empty one? No, but let's go ahead and use these fancy plates and we'll replace them with those instead. There we go. Okay, let me take a look around and see what other things we have here that we might want to mess around with. Let's move this chest a little out of the way here. Let's kind of rotate. That looks like a shadow. That looks like a shadow. We'll remove that. Let's go ahead and move this. We'll rotate it a little bit this way. Let's take this one and we'll rotate it this way so it looks like it's crashed a little bit. That looks good. Okay. Ooh, I see some lighting on there. Let's go ahead and remove some of that lighting. That looks good. Okay. Yeah, some things are underwater. Let's go ahead and do a couple other things here. Super cool trick that you can do also with these right here. Let's say that you want to show the rocks on these to where it lines up with the rocks. If we go back over here, we're going to go back to the brush. We're going to go subtract. And what I'll do is I'll create the waves just along the contours of the rock. Like maybe I want to do this rock right here like this. Oopsie, did it add? Oops, am I on the wrong layer? That might be the issue. That's the problem. There we go, water, there we go. I'll go ahead and subtract that right there, or put a rock right there. Let's have it to where maybe this rock is also above the water. Like that, I think that looks good. That rock's above the water. Let's put this rock above the water. Let's go over here. Let's also place some of these rocks above the water, like this one right here. This one right here. Let's put this rock above the water. Let's put this rock above the water. This one too. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a step back and look at it. There we go. Just to make sure that we have some rocks that are above the water. I think that makes it more interesting, right? So players, even though most of their body is in the water, they can use these rocks that are above the water to stabilize themselves if need be. So always nice to kind of throw in those kind of elements here. Same thing here. I think I'll go ahead and take this part right here looks good, and this one right here. That way it kind of stays with the contours so that it works right. That looks good. Let's go ahead and take a step back, just see how it looks so far. Yeah, that looks good. So you do have this giant section right here above the water, which is very helpful. Why don't we also take some wooden crates or platforms or something that's kind of like a raft of some sort? So why don't we type in wood? And I do believe there are some nice pieces. I think there's something in desert, like these wooden roofs right here. These will work really well. Why don't we take one of these right here and we'll place it above the water like this. So another kind of location. And in fact, why don't we submerge some of this underwater like we did to this one right here? So I'll go ahead and put this below the water like this, like I did before. We'll put it in this corner right there. Let's rotate it. Let me just take a step back so I can see. Let's rotate it going this way, I think. And then we'll go back, we'll subtract, just like we did before. Let's put this corner of it in the water. Oopsie, I'm sorry, the other way, my bad. Like this. So this part will be above the water right here. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and fix the little errors right here that I made. That looks good. And so now you have a half submerged thing right here. It's a little on the bright side, so why don't we bring the brightness down just a little bit? There we go. That looks good. A little bit darker, I think, is a good choice. Yeah, that looks good. And if you don't like the white around that edge there, we can go ahead again like we did before, and we can add a little portal right here that removes this section to where the water is only right there like that. Okay. Nice little trick there. You can also use that object shadow trick that we did before, custom object shadow. Go to white, and it wouldn't be white on this side, so offset it to where it's up like this and then up like this. Get the shadows away from, bring the size down probably a little bit, should probably help. And then let's go ahead and just center these real quick. That will help. There we go. And then I'll offset. There we go. A little bit more this way, I think looks good. That looks good. And then I'll also just bring that blur down a little bit. You know what? That's not working. Why don't we go ahead and remove that? No, that's fine just as it is. Maybe the shine out of the pool, of the water pools. Maybe the shine out. What's the shine out? Not sure I understand what that is. Maybe you can inform me on what that is. I'm not sure. Let's take a look here. Overall, this is looking good so far. I think we should do some more things. I think we've got enough land here. This rock rubble pile right here is perfect for that. And then also this piece of wood right here, I think works well. There's a spot that I missed right here. Why don't we get that real quick? Let me go to subtract. Oopsie. Little spot I missed right there. That looks good. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Let's take a look at what else we have here. Okay, I think this is enough. You have all of these things floating above the water. These can kind of stabilize the players. There's at least some places that they can go that will... that should make it easier for combat, so it won't be all under the water, which will be extremely difficult, in my opinion. So I think this is enough land. There's a couple other things that we could also do. We should continue wherever you have pieces of wood like this. Like if you have, let's also use some of these rubble as well. Like the roof would probably have wooden rafters to support weight or something like that. So what we want to do is maybe show that there's some collapse, further collapse. So let's take a large section right here like this. Why don't we put it underwater like over here somewhere? We'll collapse that. We're going to put this underwater like that. That looks good. We'll turn off that shadow. So that looks good. You have some collapse right there. Let's make another one that's collapsed maybe over here. Let's go ahead and put that underneath like that. That looks good. Why don't we put that right about there? That looks good. And then we also should put some rubble above the water because wood floats unless it gets waterlogged. So let's throw in another like wood section. And what I'll do is I'll make a little path. So there's some here, here, and then I'll put another part just floating around right here like this maybe. Should look good. And then we'll switch out that object shadow to white. There we go. That looks good. Let's go and bring the intensity down a little bit. Let's go and rotate it this way. That looks good. Now you have that. And wherever you have these floating panels, these floating rubble, you should have little pieces of rubble as well, right? When something collapses, there's big chunks of support beams, there's slivers, there's wood dust, there's wood chunks that fall. So there's usually a variety when you have a big collapse. So what we should do is take this same wood right here. You might have to adjust it a little bit to kind of fit the same kind of color scheme as that wood right there. So we'll bring the saturation down, bring the brightness down a little bit. We're getting dang close to matching about that. Let's maybe bring the saturation down a little bit more. We'll change that hue to get more of that reddish color. That looks about right. Then I'll go ahead and change the object shadow to that white color like we were using before. That looks good. And then I'll place a bunch of these above the water like this. So I'll place a bunch of them like this. Some like that. Maybe some over here. Like this. Some over here. There we go. Don't forget to put it above things that are below the water, right? Because, again, to create that sense of depth, you would take those stamps and place it right over it, just like that. There we go. Especially where this piece is right here, you would expect a lot of it. You would expect a lot right here because there's a bunch of wood that collapsed. So we'll put all that there. Now you have a bunch of wood that fell into the water there. I think that looks good. We'll go ahead and we'll just take a quick look at it. So we have rubble, we have collapse. Players can, maybe they fall through the roof and land on this rock rubble right here, this rubble right here. And maybe there's something under the water they need to get. Like you notice that there's a chest right here. So maybe there's something in the chest that players need to find. Maybe there's something in these barrels that they need to find. Maybe they need to swim over to this part over here and then go into this area right here. Lots of options here that you kind of players can kind of choose from. So there's a lot of that, and they can stop and either rest on top of this or catch their balance here. They can rest on top of this large piece of wood right here. They can stop and grab these wooden crates if they want to swim over with the help of an aid over to here. So there's a lot of things that we can do there. I think we're going to do just one. We're going to do a couple more things here. One, we're going to establish a light source. And remember I mentioned the players kind of collapsed and then they fell into this wooden section right here. So it would make the most sense that there would probably be a light source right there. So let's go over to lights. There are no lights in here, but we can go ahead and add them. Let's go into the catalog. We'll type in light. And there's a lot of ways that you can approach light. If you want to say that it was the middle of the day, then maybe you want to use a yellow light source to show that there's a yellow sun. If it's a moonlight, why not desaturate it and make it white? Make it that white color, and then it will look more like moonlight instead of daylight. And I kind of like the moonlight a little bit. I think going down in the night makes it a little bit more scary and a little bit more interesting. Not also are your players contending with water, but they're also contending with a lack of light sources. So that's a good choice. So I think that's a good light source choice. That way it makes it clear, like, hey, this is where the players fell in. And if they want to get back out, they either have to find something like a ladder, or maybe they can use some wood if they want to go back out the way they came. Or if it's too far of a fall where they can't get out, there has to be another way. So very helpful. Pardon me a moment. Excuse me. Sorry about that. A little dusty. Okay, let's keep going. We're going to add in a couple filters, and then we're going to do just a little bit of light work, not too much. So first, one of the filters I recommend using is that we could use a kind of a winter filter to kind of give this bluish kind of water kind of feel to it. So what I'll end up doing here is I'll go to add filter layer. We're going to choose this winter right here. I'm going to go ahead and take this winter filter. I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I'm just going to see what it looks like. I just want to get a little bit of blue because there's a lot of water in here. So I want to have this kind of bluish hue to it. That will be a good step. What about also maybe showing some, we could do some like reflections in the water. What happens if we want, because there is a light right there, you would expect some light to hit the water and there be some reflection. So why don't we do that? Look, why don't we take this light layer and why don't we take a shape? Let's go ahead and turn stroke off and let's go over to here and let's choose water right here. You see these water reflections? Why don't we use these? I'm going to turn off I'm going to go over to here. I'm going to turn off, let me see for a second here. There should be a merge shape option. I want to turn that off. Not sure where that is. Oh, I think it should be okay. And what I'll do here is I'll go to add. I think merge is all right. And I'm going to go ahead and go like this across. And I'm going to go ahead and add in these reflections here. Let's go ahead and turn off the stroke. We don't need that. Let's also change the blend mode maybe to lighten or overlay. Let's try overlay. No, I can't see it. Let's try lighten. That's okay. Let's go ahead and bring the opacity down. There we go. And this is going to represent like reflections in the water. So if you step back, you can look at it. This water is reflecting like here, like this. The other thing we should do if you're going to have reflections like that is we should also put reflections in the water. If you're going to have reflections on the wall, then there should also be reflections in the water as well. So let's go ahead and wherever the light source is, we'll add some reflections to it. So I'll take that same one. I'll do that again and add some reflections right about here. I think looks good. We'll add that. And then right about here, we'll also add some reflections right about there. So that looks good. So there you have those reflections. And then what we also want to do is we want to put some stuff in the water. So what we'll have to do there is, my recommendation is we could use a brush layer for that. So why don't we go over to, I'm going to leave this light layer selected. We're going to go to brush layer. And I'm going to rename this to water reflections. And then we'll choose a water. You can choose this texture right here would work just fine. You can use this one if you want. Let me make sure. Brush layer. Let me just double check here. Yeah, let me bring the opacity down. So you have a couple options here. You can paint on over the water like this if you want, or you can do like, you can also use phthalites. This is up to you. There are any of these phthalites. Try the white ones, bring the opacity down. You could also paint a little bit of these phthalites to make it look like it's reflections. You can do that. If you're not happy with that, that's okay. You can always use the reflections. I think either one really works just fine. It's up to you. Let's go ahead and just use the reflections. I think this will work just fine. There we go. I'm just going to place that wherever I see reflections on the wall. That's where I'll also put reflections in the water, because that makes sense, right? Wherever there's reflections, there we go. That looks good. All right, now we have that there. That looks good. A couple things we might want to consider doing is maybe bumping up the rest of it. So why don't we add a couple filters and then we'll call it good. Let's go ahead and add another filter layer. I'm going to go ahead with, we're going to choose this color adjustment filter. I'm going to put this filter at the very, very top because I want everything to be affected by it. And then here you can do some adjustments for things like you can change the contrast. You can bring the contrast up or down. I like to kind of bring it up a little bit more. That will make the things that are underwater pop out a little bit more. That's helpful. You can always bring the brightness down. This way you can make it look like it's underground like we were doing before. So we'll bring that brightness down. We can bring the saturation down if you want to make it a more grim, a more kind of scary aesthetic. If you want it to be a little bit more saturated, you can bump up the saturation to give it a little bit more bluish color to it. I think it's a more gloomy setting. It's a little bit more somber, a little more melancholic. So I'll just bring the saturation down just a little bit. I don't want it to be too bright. And then I can also change the hue. Maybe I want some ethereal, like green water with some pink wood. Maybe the water has been contaminated. It's mixed with some chemicals that the dwarves were using So maybe there was some mix there. You can have it purple and green if you want to give it this more fell or undead feel to it. Maybe you want to have a more fey like feeling to it, then go with your purple and green. So you can mess a lot with the color adjustments to make adjustments to your map to make them better. So a lot of different options that you can kind of work with here. So lots of cool things that you can kind of do to make your map better. So I'm just going to go over it real quick and just kind of see how it turned out. Overall, I like the things. I think the other thing we might want to consider doing is I want to add in a couple light sources, but this time I'm not using the light source as a light source. I'm using it more of a way of like coloring the water. So if I go to hue, I'm going to make it this bluish color. I'm going to bring, maybe bring the opacity down a little bit. And I'm just going to put this blue light source just in certain areas, just to add a little bit more extra blue to those sections there. Why don't I go ahead and bring the opacity up a little bit more? There we go. Get a little bit more blue. That looks a little bit better. There we go. All right. Nice. Cool trick. I like that. I think the only other thing that we could also do is there's already a vignette on here. We could make the walls a little bit darker. So you could go like this and bring the vignette even more. We could also go to normal. If you want it to be like this, this would make the walls a little bit darker. If you wanted to, the only problem is we want light sources over here. So we'll go ahead and undo that. Excuse me. All right, we could take one of these light sources and kind of put it up against the walls like this, just so that there's a little bit more light coming from there. That makes a little bit more sense. That looks good. That looks good. Okay. Yeah, much better. There we go. So the final stage that I generally do when I feel that I'm done, if I feel that I'm done, what I'll end up doing is I'll try to zoom in and start playing the map. So what I'll do is I'll go to select all, and then I can unselect everything, and this way I won't accidentally select things and bounding boxes won't get in the way. And what I'll do is I'll zoom in and start here, and I'll start to play out what my players might do, where they might swim over here. They might immediately see the chest underwater, so they might swim over there. I might see them go over here and swim to this, and then paddle over to this thing, and then make their way over to here. They might go swim over to here and see this minecart fell over, and maybe that crystal underwater, maybe they need that. They might decide that they might want to go underwater and see what's under this rubble right here, or maybe some swimming creatures will come out. Maybe when the lake collapsed, in the water also came these sea creatures, or not sea, lake-like creatures, and they're swimming around. Maybe there's some combat that needs to be taking place, and so you'll have options, the land right here. If the creatures you're fighting have advantage in the water, then at least you have the land here to help you, to give you advantage against the creatures in the water. So there's a lot of different options. I usually set it up to where the creatures will attack once they're in the water, so that way your players don't have a quick advance. That way they can get kind of a surprise on them, because I don't want my players to have the perfect advantage. I want there to be some level of challenge. And my theory is, when it comes to your players in combat, be brutal. Be brutal. I don't mean kill off your players. I mean, don't make it easy for them. And if you do that, it'll make it way more fun and more challenging. I have a habit of being very forgiving to my players, and so I had to slowly forge my way to be just brutal. It's what you just have to do as a DM. All right, well, hey, this was a lot of fun. If you do have a map that you want to have submerged, again, wherever our social media is, I would recommend either DM me on Reddit. If you're on Discord, go to Discord and shoot me a DM. I will sync your battle map, I will ruin it, or I will remake it. So just shoot me that link. Make sure, again, that the map is clonable and published and clonable, so that I can clone that. And again, if you don't want it to be published, shoot me up a message first. I will quickly clone it, and then you can unpublish it, okay? All right, well, thanks, everyone. This was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed Submerging Waves map. This was a lot of fun. I hope that you will be able to use this same method when you decide to submerge your own battle maps, okay? All right, please stay safe and healthy and merry map making. I will see you all next week, okay? Have a great weekend, everyone. Goodbye.